What comes to your mind when you look at your nails? Most of the time, it's inconsequential, and at best, you're looking at grooming if it has grown a little too long. But your nails are giving you something very important. It's quietly giving you a nice report card of what's happening inside your body. Yes, that's true. And that's what we're going to take a look at. Color, shape, texture, everything is giving a signal. Let's decode some of it. I'll probably scratch the surface here. So I'm going to look at the nail structure, how it grows. You're also going to establish the baseline nail, that is what a healthy nail typically looks like. We will look at the deviation from that. Some are systemic, some are organ specific, and some are non systemic, as in very less association with systemic issues. So let's start with what nails are made of. Just like your hair and the outer layer of the skin, nails are made of keratin. Now, why is it hard if it's the same that is present in hair and skin? Because it's hardened keratin, as in 25 layers of keratin. That's why it is pretty hard. Nail grows at about 3 millimeters a month, which means a typical nail, depending on the length that you maintain, gives you a report card of anywhere from 3 to 5 months of historical health data. So that's the interesting part of why it shows your running health and the past. Now, this keratin itself is made out of two amino acids, cysteine plus methionine. They are combined in some form to produce keratin. I'll not go deep into that. Methionine in particular has to come from food. The other can be produced by the body. So you have to eat adequate nutrition, that is good protein, to get these. Now, let's also look at what a healthy nail is supposed to look like. Healthy nails are smooth, pinkish, with a small white crescent at the base. Take a look at your nail. That's called as the lunula. Whatever we're going to discuss after this is going to be small deviations from this baseline. So just to give you an indication, I'll also show you my fingers, not that these are the healthiest nails. So this is how the nails typically look like. Let me share my screen and show you some parts of it. Yeah. So as you can see, the what you see on the outside, it's called as the nail plate. The crescent that I just spoke about is called the lunula, and then you have the cuticle and then the nail bed. Now, of course, the base, the area which in where from where the nail actually grows, that area, the sealant is called as the cuticle, but it's enough if you understand the basic nail structures. Now we're going to talk about some of the deviations from a classical healthy nail versus the deviations from the healthy nail. Missing lunula on smaller fingers, don't worry about it. So typically it will be present anatomically normal. The crescent is usually hidden under the cuticle on narrower nails and smaller nails. So mostly it will be visible in the thumb. Let me see if I can show it. Yeah, as you can see here, you can see it in the thumb. So if you have it in your thumbs and middle and the index finger, you're pretty much fine. Most people don't have it on all the fingers. So let's take a look at the deviations again. Brittle or peeling nails. Most often you're low in iron, zinc or biotin. Can also indicate thyroid issues, usually diet driven, not a disease. Check ferritin and TSH if persistent. So this is your brittle nails. So a lot of people actually seem to have it. It is also possible that you kind of go in and out of water, or the hand is dipped too much into water, you wash your hands too much, even then it can pretty much lead to brittle nails. So you need to be a little watchful of that part. So it's a diet fixable issue, not a disease. That's what I want to get. Now let's look at some of the serious ones. The spoon shaped nails, or that is curved upwards. The spoon shaped nails, it's like kind of bent inwards and resembles a spoon. That's why it's called curving upward. It's called Koilonychia, right? It's very hard to pronounce for me. Classic sign of iron deficiency, anemia. Check hemoglobin and ferritin, especially relevant for vegetarians. Third one, which is quite common, which I've also observed quite a bit with people, is pitting, which is called tiny dents on the surface. Often the first visible sign of psoriasis, even before any skin symptoms appear. So be very careful. Number 4, clubbing. Nails curving downward, fingertips bulging. This is something that you would have seen in some people. The tip of the nail will resemble a bulb, like an onion, slightly big, and the nails will be curving downward. This is a serious issue. Can indicate lung, heart, or gut disease. See a doctor. That's a recommendation. Okay, so a few more things that we will cover. Vertical ridges, tip to cuticle. So there, in most of the fingers, sometimes you'll see the vertical ridges. Just like with aging, your skin shows some lines. Your nails also show some. Extremely common with age. Normal as a nail cell turnover slows. Rarely linked to anything serious. Occasionally tied to mild dehydration or big B12/magnesium gaps. Mostly just nails aging like skin does. That's about it. horizontal ridges that's called as Beau's lines, grooves running across the nail horizontally, growth paused from illness, high fever, stress, zinc deficiency, or poorly controlled diabetes. Count back using the 3 millimeter per month rule to estimate when it happened. So obviously, when you had some illness, it doesn't prioritize growth of the nail, so which means the nutrients haven't reached it, and that's why you have those, let's say, cessation of the growth showing up as horizontal lines. The other one, which is usually fine, is some white spots. It's called Koilonychia. Okay, not a calcium deficiency, which typically grandmothers say, it seems. That's a myth. Almost always minor trauma to the nail matrix. A knock, a snag, a manicure pressure weeks earlier, now growing into view, grows out on its own, widespread spots that never grow out, or the rare exception worth a zinc kidney or a liver check. Okay, let's also take a look at some of the dark spots that happen in the nail and what that means. What about the nails that go suddenly dark? Right now, we have different types of darkening that happen in the nails, as you can see on the screen. First, a dark patch after a knock or a gym session or an engineer. It's called subungual hematoma, pooled blood, grows out, nothing to worry. The second one is the dark, thin, uniform streak from the tip to the cuticle. Cuticle is at the base. This could be trauma, could be melanonchia. And here's the stat worth knowing: it shows up only in about 1% of white skinned people, but in nearly 100% of African Americans by age 50 and around 20% of Asians. Higher melanocyte activity in darker skin. Most streaks mean nothing. So you can monitor, you don't have to worry too much about it. Now, when do you have to worry is the third condition: widening streak plus cuticle darkening. You have to see a doctor. If that streak is widening at the base, as you can see, it's like a cone, the edges are blurry, or the surrounding skin is darkening, that's the one that needs a visit to your dermatologist immediately. Okay, cool. One thumb rule before we go into the organ specific section: one nail with a problem is usually local, a fungus, old injury, or pressure from your shoes or whatever your gloves you're wearing. But the same change showing up on every nail at the same time, that's the body talking, not one finger having a bad day. So if some of these conditions are present across multiple nails, not just one in isolation, it's time to visit your doctor. So now that the part one base is established, let's look at little bit of organ specific issues and some images related to that. By no means this is a comprehensive coverage of all possible illnesses that are visible through nails, but I'm just covering some of the most common ones that I thought would be useful for a common man. Okay, great. Let's go one organ by organ. Let's say if you have a kidney issue, it shows up as something called as half and half nails. It's very pale near the cuticle, brownish at the top, shows up in chronic renal failure. And then splinter hemorrhages, tiny red brown streaks under the nail, more significant when on multiple nails at one part of time. So if you have any kidney issues, it's likely to show up in these two forms. Next, let's go to the heart. Splinter hemorrhages again. So if you see, splinter hemorrhages seems pretty common indication in the nail when you have either a kidney or a heart issue. Tiny red brown streaks under the nail, most often from a knock. But the systemic cause to know is bacterial endocarditis, infection of the heart wall. So sometimes it's a heart wall issue or something related to the heart. It's an early indication that you need to visit a cardiologist. Let's move to the liver. Terry nail, a very common condition that appears when you have liver cirrhosis. So people whose liver is failing, right, it shows up as Terry nails. Most of the nails turn white, ground and glass looking. Lunula disappears. So the lunula, the curvature that we spoke about, the one that we had in the end, the moon shaped one, that completely disappears, and the entire nail looks brittle and glassy. And in the sense, you can see much more clearly than the slightly pinkish whitish form that we typically come across. That's called as Terry nails. Brittle ridged nails seen in hepatitis B and C. So obviously, if you have any of these conditions, something is wrong with the liver, you need to immediately visit your doctor. Lungs. We spoke about clubbing a while ago. The curved nails, the bulbous end, that's a sign that something is not absolutely right with the lungs. Linked to chronic lung disease, low blood oxygen. And the second condition is yellow nail syndrome. Thick, yellow, slow growing nails, paired with swelling and respiratory issues, asthma, bronchitis, and COPD. So these are some indications that shows up in the nails when you have any lung issue. The next one is blood/iron Koilonychia. Okay. I don't know if I pronounced it right, but I hope you can read it and understand. Spoon nails, we just spoke about it. Classic iron deficiency anemia sign, most visible on thumb or the big toe. Pale nail buds, simple, fast visual check for anemia. Okay, that's on the blood and iron. So if you have any of these deficiencies, it is likely to show up in your nails in this form. Thyroid issues, nails lifting off the bed. So obviously the nails are very close to the nail bed, but if the nails plate is lifting off the bed, starting at the ring or the little finger, called plumber's nails, not plumber, plumber's nails, a hyperthyroid marker. This is something that you have to remember. And this Koilonychia seems to be linked also to thyroid plus the iron issue. So this is something that you need to watch out for. Then let's look at common issue diabetes, redness around the cuticle, periungual erythema, often one of the earliest visible signs. Yellow thick nails develops over time as fragile, ridged, brittle nails. I think this is something that we saw commonly in another issue, maybe with, I think with lungs, was it yellow nail syndrome and yellow thick nails here in this case. That's a slight difference. And then you have something called as autoimmune disease, which is also quite common these days. Psoriasis show up as pitting. We described it. Often before any skin symptoms at all. Lupus and rheumatoid arthritis show up as redness at the cuticle fold and tiny splinter hemorrhages. So we have to watch out for these red dot splinter hemorrhages. Psoriasis showing up as pitting. I think this pretty much covers most of the key organs, and if they are malfunctioning, how it shows up in the nails. As I gave a kind of indication before, one nail with the problem is usually local. You don't have to worry. But if it is prevalent across multiple nails, that's the time you need to visit a doctor. Yeah, a few more conditions that I think we should cover. I'll also cover how Terry's nails looks like. So this is your whole nail white grounded glass, just a thin pink band at the tip. Lunula disappears, classic and liver cirrhosis, also heart failure and diabetes. What is Mees lines? A single transverse white band doesn't fade when pressed. So obviously in some fingers you would have seen white bands running across horizontally. So that's called as Mees lines. A single transverse white band doesn't fade when pressed. So when you press the nail, it doesn't fade. Classic cause, arsenic poisoning. Also seen in Hodgkin's disease, heart failure and carbon monoxide exposure. The next one, double lines, is Muehrcke's lines. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I hope you can understand. So if you see double white line instead of a single one, they temporarily disappear when you squeeze the fingertip, caused by low blood albumin, kidney disease or liver disease or malnutrition. What are the nutritional signals? I think you have to understand is, for vegetarians, a few deficiency markers worth knowing. I want to speak about that before we wind up. Missing lunulae across most fingers, like I told you, the lunulae is the white one that you see. As you can see, it's not visible across all of my nails either. So what they say is, across most fingers, including the thumbs, possible thyroid or kidney flag. It cannot be absent in all the nails. Missing only in the smaller fingers, it's normal anatomy, it's not a concern. Black toenails. I know I didn't speak about we were talking about these fingernails, not about the toenails, but if you have very black toenails, it can signal B12 deficiency or anemia. Peeling nails, lifting in layers. Some people have these nails that are peeling, which if you scrape, it just comes off. That's again a bad condition, but it's mostly due to nutrition. It's low in biotin. Fixes, basically you have to eat sweet potato, almonds, sunflower seeds and stuff that will give you biotin intake. Yeah. Okay, now the other things that most people commonly see and then face, but they don't know the answers to it, is ridges. Now we spoke about ridging, right? So ridges are nothing but kind of think of them as lines. It can be either vertical or it can be horizontal. Now typically you can take your nail and just run your fingers through it like this. If it is very smooth, shiny and easy, it's not stopping and going, it means your nails are reasonably okay, not a problem. But in some cases there are ridges, there are lines that are running across. So I spoke about the vertical ridge, which is very common with age. So it's just cosmetic. It is just that the nail is aging and you don't have to worry about it. We spoke about horizontal ridges running across the nails. We know what it is called. We call it as Beau's lines, BEAU's lines. Growth literally paused. Illness, fever, zinc deficiency, poorly controlled diabetes. So if you have this condition, you should run your clock back to the 3 to 5 month period and then see what was the illness that you had sometime back, fever or whatever it was, to see why it caused those horizontal ridges. I think most of the common nail deficiencies we've covered. We've also discussed some of the serious issues that you will see in the nail, whether it's a heart issue or a lung issue or let's say diabetes or a gut issue. Yeah, next time you trim your nail, whenever that is, once in 2 weeks or whatever time frame you take, just make sure you observe your nail a little more closely. And then if you see any of these conditions, you know what needs to be done. You can refer this video and also share it with friends who you think will benefit.